I move with the times. With progress, I expect high performance. But to keep the scales away, I've discovered L'Oreal Anti-Lizard Scale Reduction.
Latest invention from the laboratories of L'Oreal. Anti-Lizard is a courgette-smelling balm, reducing scutella and the reptilic transformation process.
Anti-Lizard's reptiminimus ingredients reduce the signs that I'm slowly transforming into a lizard creature, so I can remain above the sewers for longer.
Anti-Lizard Scale Reduction Cream from L'Oreal. Hello there and welcome to the first television fair of 2024, and if you're in the future then a special hello to you and our overlords. This year marks a huge milestone in digital broadcasting in the UK because we're having another digital switchover from standard definition to hologram. Wait, no, that's another 15 years yet. We're actually going from standard definition to HD or high definition. That means if you rely on SDTV and you don't have a compatible TV, then you'll get a message saying, "No TV, upgrade, motherfucker!" or words to that effect. But we had to get here in the first place, and I've touched on a couple of channels since the launch of Sky Digital in 1998. Some of Sky's analogue services on Astra and some of the other channels, as well as channels on Eutelsat, continued into the mid-2000s before the satellites were completely shut down and then replaced by their digital brothers. But I've been a little reluctant to cover these channels in the same way as I have in the previous episodes, which is probably more earlier on in the television affair, because of the massive channels that launched on Sky Digital. That was fucking mental, so I've decided to chunk it down a bit. So, if you got Sky Digital ready for October 1998, what sort of thing were you going to be able to pick up when you switch on your system and it's all installed? Well, the digital system and the analog system were separate things. So, if you had Sky Digital, then you probably wouldn't be able to pick up the channels on the old system, and it might not be worth the new system until there was enough on it to make it worth a good replacement. Sky Digital system was a good way to differentiate itself from the non-Sky channels, especially in Europe. As I mentioned before, there was loads of pan-European channels, but many of them were actually starting to be dedicated to their own countries. Basically, if they weren't free to air, you could only unlock that channel if you paid the company for a card. Even after Sky removed its services and launched Sky Digital, you could still get channels on the analog satellite. It was still used by other broadcasters until their digital switchovers, and the last was German broadcasters until the switchover to digital, which was complete in 2012. That's how I could watch Kika and Viva. Many of the broadcasters interested in Sky's British service had left by October 1998, but there were still a few, and those ones would be the ones that launched on the analogue service in 1997 and a bit before that. Those included UK Arena, UK Horizons, UK Style, and Rapture TV. They all launched on analogue a year or less before the official switch on. What made Sky Digital different to the other system was the Electronic Programme Guide, or the EPG. Firstly, this included BBC One Channel 4 and Channel 5 at launch. In the previous system, you had to tune and order the channels yourself. Digital just did it for you. The new system also didn't act like it was having a heart attack every time you changed the channel. So at launch, and something that hasn't changed since the launch, is the first 5 channels, sort of. The cool thing about Sky service is you could automatically pick up your local BBC channels. If you knew how to retune your box, you could actually pick up some of the other regions. I used to love watching BBC's local news programmes because mine was BBC News West, but you could also see what was happening on Look North as well. Although you could get Channel 4 and 5, ITV was a bit more complicated. They had their own digital service to start with, and you couldn't get ITV on Sky at launch. In fact, you couldn't get it, I think, until about 2002. This was still running on the local services back then, so if you wanted to watch it, all you'd have to do is make sure that you've got your aerial tuned into the back of your normal telly and just press Channel 3. We didn't have BBC 3 or BBC 4 back then because they didn't launch until later. One thing that had to be consistent on every digital platform was that the public service broadcasters would be the first on the EPG. unless your TV or system lets you move it into a different position. Sky made this process even easier because they bundled their channels all together depending on what the channel's genre was. So entertainment, movies, sports, news and documentaries, kids, music and shopping, and a section that I can only describe as the rest because they've got all the other stuff on it, such as information channels, the adult channels and the radio. Sort of, there wasn't really radio channels back then, but there was audio channels. I'll go into that a little bit later on. So that covers your first lot. Next, it came the beef, and you couldn't get any beefier than Sky One. Sky One was on channel 106. If you're not aware of Sky One, where the heck have you been? It might not exist anymore, but geez. To be fair, it sort of does exist, it's just got a different name now. But Sky One was what this whole thing was built on way back in the 80s and the launch of the Sky satellite system in 1989. By 1998, Sky was well established and well known. It was still championing American shows such as The Simpsons, WWF Raw, X-Files, Star Trek The Next Generation and Voyager, and Stargate SG-1. As well as The Outer Limits, Third Rock from the Sun, and Xena Warrior Princess, all those type of shows. .109 was UK Gold, and by 1998 the UK TV group had been established. This was an agreement between BBC Worldwide and FlexTech. UK Gold was moving more into newer old shows, meaning the shows that have been playing for years were being shown less. Shows like 2.4 Children, Due South, and One Foot in the Grave would be shown more, along with soaps like The Bill, Neighbours and EastEnders, and other soaps and dramas from about 5 years ago or less. Older content from the 60s and 70s was being licensed out to other channels or residing with its original owners, and would be aired on somewhere like Granada Plus. Step in Sky Channel 110, which would be UK Gold's first spin-off channel, UK Gold Classics. This was UK TV's first digital exclusive channel, but this would change its name to UK Gold 2 in 1999. And it would slowly morph into a UK Gold copy, airing almost the exact same things at different times until 2002, when it relaunched as a UK G2 that focused on more youth-orientated and edgier shows. Channel 112 was Living TV. That was a lifestyle channel that had been running for the last few years, and by this stage it was being fully run by FlexTech. I'm currently in the process of making a full look at FlexTech, but in short, at this stage they were the result of a number of mergers and buyouts, and many of their other channels were on Sky and cable and terrestrial digital. They were kind of the go-to company if you needed to fill up your electronic programming guide. .115 was the Disney Channel, which launched 3 years before in 1995, and it had been playing TV shows and films from Disney's back catalogue. It would usually be a pay extra thing on cable services, but Disney's place here wouldn't remain because it was a bit weird that they weren't placed in the kids section. But to be higher up the EPG was beneficial because the higher up you are, the more likely you're going to be seen, so that probably had something to do with it. On 118 was Granada Plus, the strongest out of the Granada Sky channels, and although it was carried on the other digital channels, Sky were involved at this stage, and it didn't affect what was going on with the competing ITV Digital because they were owned by different companies, even if they were kind of associated. On 121 was game show channel Challenge, and this still exists today, but it's owned by Sky. Back then, it was owned by FlexTech, and it was their flagship channel. Prior to being Challenge, it was known as the Family Channel, and it came from the old TVS studios, and it used to channel share with the Children's Channel until they ditched it in 1997. In fact, if you had a certain cable company in 1998, you might have still had the Children's Channel. There was a bit of a ruckus with the contracts, which meant that they had to continue broadcasting in certain parts of Europe, and some of the UK cable networks took it as a protest.
Ett annorledes drama. Biker Grove. Hver dag på TCC Nordic.
On Channel 124, another Flex Tech channel, and that was Bravo. It used to be a classic films channel, but by 1998, it became sort of an alternative channel playing trauma films and being touted towards a young, edgy male audience hungry for pus, spew, tits, binge drinking, and toilet humour. On Channel 127 was the Paramount channel, and that shared a channel with Nickelodeon over the analogue and on cable networks. It mostly aired American TV shows such as Friends and Frasier and Third Rock from the Sun and Cheers, but it also shared some of its own comedy programmes with other channels such as Spaced and Channel 4. It also played some of the classic shows that UK Gold were done with or didn't even have in the first place, like The Young Ones, the comic strip, and also some of the Kenny Everett programmes. Paramount was a Viacom company, and it would eventually change into Comedy Central.
This is the Sci-Fi Channel.
Channel 130 was the Sci-Fi channel. At this point, it was a Vivendi channel, which owns the Canal Plus group in France. It's currently run by Sky. Sky thought it was a great idea to plonk the remaining G-Sky B channels at 136 and 139 with Granada Breeze and Granada Men and Motors respectively, and then Sky Soap and Sky Travel on 142 and 145 respectively.
This is UK Style, part of the UK TV network.
A 148 was UK Style, and it was a lifestyle channel with much of the programming being from BBC's archives. The BBC's version of Lifestyle is a little bit different compared to Living TV or the Lifestyle channel when it was around. It was more about gardening, fashion, design shows, and home stuff. UK TV Style, as it was renamed, would eventually become Home in 2009, and Discovery took BBC's share in 2019, and now the channel's called HGTV.
Welcome to Saturday on UK Arena, part of the UK TV network.
151 is UK Arena, also part of the UK TV network. It was aimed to be an arts channel, playing drama and music shows, including the TV versions of Sounds of the 60s and Sounds of the 70s. It was sort of a Radio 4 for the UK TV network, and like UK TV Style, Horizons and Gold, it would be mainly full of BBC's archives. Arena was actually named after one of the BBC's flagship art shows, Arena. The channel would be renamed to UK Drama, and again later as Alibi, mainly focusing on crime and investigation dramas. In the initial meeting with Flex Tech and the BBC a few years before, they came up with a few concepts for channels. BBC would end up replacing their end with BBC Worldwide because of complications with the main BBC being associated with a commercial TV station and the local BBC getting the TV licence. So they gave it to BBC Worldwide, which was their commercial arm, distributing other shows and magazines. One of those channels would have been BBC Horizons and BBC Arena, along with BBC Showcase, which was a general entertainment channel aimed at young adults. As part of this agreement, BBC kept the concept of its Showcase for itself and renamed it to BBC Choice, and Choice was available on digital, but being the BBC, it meant that it couldn't take sides, so it was kind of on all of them, including Sky Channel 160.
To no basis. This is BBC Choice.
BBC Choice would later go on to be BBC Three. At 161, there was a channel that I've been asked about in the comments in the Television Affair earlier episodes, and it launched in 1996, and it follows the same logic as Sky Scottish's existence, which, if you've been paying attention, you'll know that it was made for Scottish people, not in Scotland anymore. It wasn't a looping video of Kool and the Gang's celebration, it was actually 2 hours of Scottish stuff. But we're not talking about Scotland right here, we're talking about our other geographical neighbour, Ireland. Tara Television was all about Tara Palmer Tompkins. No, it wasn't. Tara Television was a channel aimed at Irish people who were, have you figured it yet? No longer living. Yes, ghosts, only ghosts. And you know that's total bollocks. It was actually for people who used to live in Ireland but don't live in Ireland now. Tara would live longer than your average Sky Scottish because it actually broadcast more than 2 hours a day. They even had aspirations of expanding to places called America and Canada and Australia. I don't know where that is. But unfortunately, that would never be. It started out on some cable networks after a consortium which was formed to launch the channel, and this included RTE with some rural Irish TV networks and a Dutch company called United Pan-European Communications. Tara aired a large number of RTE's old shows to the UK. However, RTE got cross about that because they didn't get their royalties and took it to court. It was a bit of a dick move from Tara because 80% of Tara's output was from RTE. Tara would then try settling the matter by agreeing to pay RTE, but by 2001, RTE was so fucked off they just wanted to shut it down and refused the offer, and the station closed. RTE told the Irish Times that it regrets shutting down Tara, but it said that it was not possible to continue supporting Tara when there was clear evidence that the company was insolvent.
Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman star now in a sci-fi thriller set in a world of GM humans, Gattaca.
Sky's movie channels were in the 300s, and Sky Premiere on 301, 302, 303, 304 with widescreen on 305. Weirdly, those are the bus numbers that you could catch to my house from Manchester if you ever wanted to come and meet me, except from the 304 because that blew up at launch. Get off the bus at the big supermarket, cross the road at the pub, follow the path on the right to the traffic lights, buy the discount shop and then go up the house with the cats in the windows where I wait. Sky Movie Max 1, 2 and 3 were on channel numbers 308 to 311, and Sky Cinemas 1 and 2 at 315 and 316 respectively. Film 4 was on 324, and Film 4 was originally called Channel 4 Films and was created as Channel 4's movie production arm. A month after Sky Digital launched, it changed its name to Film 4 and then launched the channel under the same name. The channel was originally a subscription service, but it went free to air in 2006.
This is Sky Sports 1 live.
Sports was in the 400s, and Sky Sports 1, 2 and 3 on 401, 402 and 403. 410 was MUTV, which was a joint venture between ITV, Sky and Manchester United Football Club, and they play things like exclusive content, the latest Premier League games and classic matches. Sky Sports News launched on Channel 413 and covered all the latest sports news.
This is Sky Sports News.
The racing channel was mostly a channel for racing horses. It got renamed to At the Races in 2001. The channel launched in 1995, but it looks like it launched in 1985. Right, that's it for part 1. In the next episode, we are going to be looking at channels 500 plus, which includes news, documentaries and kids channels. Thanks to all the following team members on YouTube and Patreon. Those include Joseph Adams, Stephen Bride, Hooter Noodles, Matthew Beckley, Mark Jackson, Manuel Mobius, Chris Elliott and Tracker John. The executive producers were Tim Goodwin and Computer Tom. I've been Johnny Robinson, and I'll still be Johnny Robinson after this video is finished. Thank you, bye.